You know that feeling when your whole world implodes in the span of a heartbeat? When everything you thought was solid turns out to be built on quicksand? Yeah, I'm living that nightmare right now. And honestly, I'm about to blow this whole thing wide open in a way nobody saw coming. But let me back up, because this story doesn't start with my sister's announcement. It starts way before that, in the quiet moments when I was too busy being the good girl, the perfect wife, the reliable daughter, while everyone around me was playing me for a fool. I'm Bella, and this is the story of how I went from doormat to destroyer in one epic toast. Growing up, my sister Madison and I were like oil and water. She was the wild child, the one who could sweet talk her way out of anything, who dated the bad boys and stayed out past curfew and somehow always landed on her feet. Me? I was the responsible one. The straight-A student who actually showed up for family dinners, who helped mom with the dishes, who saved my allowance instead of blowing it on whatever flavor of the week Maddie was obsessed with. Our parents loved us both, sure, but there was always this unspoken thing where I was the safety net and she was the trapeze artist, and everyone watched her, not me. By the time I hit my mid-20s, I'd built what I thought was a pretty solid life. Good job as a project manager at a tech startup in Seattle, cute apartment in Capitol Hill, a circle of friends who actually gave a damn. Then I met Derek at a mutual friend's housewarming party. Tall, charming, with this boyish grin that made my stomach flip. He worked in finance, drove a nice car, said all the right things. Within 6 months, we were engaged. Within a year, we were married in this gorgeous ceremony at a vineyard outside the city, with Maddie as my maid of honor, crying pretty tears that I thought were genuine. That should have been my first clue, honestly. Maddie never cried at anything unless it benefited her somehow. The first 3 years of marriage were decent, I guess. Derek was attentive enough. We had our routines, Sunday brunches, and Friday nights when we could manage them. But there was this distance that started creeping in around year 2. Like, he was physically there but mentally checked out. He'd stay late at the office more often, claiming big projects and demanding clients. He'd scroll through his phone during dinner, that little smile playing at his lips when he thought I wasn't looking. And yeah, I noticed. I'm not stupid. But I did what I always do. I pushed it down, told myself I was being paranoid, that every marriage goes through rough patches. Meanwhile, Maddie had moved to Seattle about 18 months ago after flaming out spectacularly in Los Angeles. Some failed acting career, a string of loser boyfriends, credit card debt up to her eyeballs. Mom begged me to help her get on her feet, because of course she did. So I did what any good sister would do. I helped her find an apartment, connected her with the job opportunities, invited her to our place for dinners. Derek seemed fine with it, even insisted we should help her more. Family's important, he'd say. And I'd feel this warm rush of love because my husband got it, you know? God, I was such an idiot. Maddie landed a gig as a server at this upscale restaurant downtown, which was actually perfect for her because she could turn on the charm and rake in tips. She started looking better, dressing nicer, posting these thirst traps on Instagram that got hundreds of likes. Good for her, I thought. Maybe she's finally growing up, getting her life together. We'd meet for lunch sometimes, and she'd gush about this guy or that guy, always keeping it vague, always with this secretive smile that should have set off alarm bells, but didn't because I was too busy trying to be supportive. The thing about betrayal is that it doesn't usually announce itself with trumpets and fanfare. It slips in quiet, wearing a familiar face, speaking in a voice you trust. It sits at your dinner table and compliments your cooking while it's already plotting how to destroy you. About 6 months ago, things got weirder. Derek started hitting the gym religiously, bought new clothes, switched his cologne, classic midlife crisis signs, except he was only 32. When I'd try to initiate intimacy, he'd claim exhaustion or stress. But he wasn't too tired to stay up late texting someone, the glow of his phone lighting up our bedroom at 2 a.m. while he thought I was asleep. I'd lie there staring at the ceiling, feeling this cold dread settle in my chest, but still telling myself it was work, just work. Then came the little things that didn't add up. Receipts for restaurants I'd never been to. Charges on our joint credit card for flowers that never made it home. That time I found a woman's earring in his car. Not mine, too cheap and trendy for my style. And he'd laughed it off, saying some client must have dropped it during a ride to a meeting. The excuses were always so smooth, so reasonable, delivered with just the right amount of eye contact and conviction. Maddie, meanwhile, suddenly had money. Not a lot, but enough that she upgraded her apartment, bought a newer car, started wearing designer accessories that definitely weren't in a server's budget. When I asked about it, she'd say something vague about tips being great or some guy taking her shopping. I even joked once that she should tell me who the sugar daddy was so I could get in on the action. She just smiled this strange smile and changed the subject. 2 months before my birthday, I noticed they started acting differently around each other. Like, Derek would tense up when Maddie came over, but in this electric way, not an uncomfortable way. They'd avoid looking at each other directly, but I'd catch these loaded glances when they thought I wasn't paying attention. At my cousin's wedding in July, I saw them standing close by the bar, his hand on the small of her back in a way that lasted a beat too long. When I walked up, they jumped apart like teenagers caught making out. "What's going on?" I'd ask, searching their faces. "Nothing," they'd said in unison, then laughed, and Derek had pulled me into a hug that felt desperate somehow, like he was trying to convince himself more than me. I started having this recurring nightmare where I'd walk into our bedroom and find them together, tangled up in sheets that smelled like betrayal. I'd wake up in cold sweats, heart racing, and Derek would be right there beside me, sleeping peacefully like he didn't have a care in the world. I'd tell myself it was just stress, just my overactive imagination playing tricks on me. But deep down, I knew. You always know. You just don't want to believe it, because believing it means your whole life is a lie, and who wants to face that kind of truth? 3 weeks before my birthday dinner, I did something I never thought I'd do. I hired a private investigator. Sounds crazy, right? Sounds like something out of a bad Lifetime movie. But I was drowning in suspicion and I needed to know. Needed to either confirm my fears or prove myself wrong so I could go back to sleeping through the night. The PI was this middle-aged woman named Janet with kind eyes and a no-nonsense attitude. She took my retainer, promised to be discreet, and told me most of her clients hoped she wouldn't find anything, but she usually did. "Prepare yourself for whatever I discover," she'd said. "The truth isn't always what you want to hear, but it's better than living in uncertainty." I went home that night and Derek was already there, cooking dinner, humming along to some song on his playlist. He kissed my forehead when I walked in, asked about my day, told me he loved me. And I stood there in our kitchen, watching him move around like everything was normal, wondering if I was losing my mind. Maybe I was paranoid. Maybe I was self-sabotaging. Maybe this was all just my own insecurity because Maddie was always the pretty one, the fun one, and some damaged part of me couldn't believe Derek really chose me. But then he got a text, and that smile crossed his face again, that private smile that wasn't for me, and I knew I wasn't crazy. Janet worked fast. Within a week, she had surveillance photos, text message records she'd somehow obtained, credit card statements that painted a picture I really didn't want to see. They'd been meeting at a hotel near the airport twice a week for the past 4 months. The affair started around February, right after Valentine's Day. How's that for irony? Derek had taken Maddie to the same restaurant where he'd proposed to me. They'd been careful, mostly, but passion makes people sloppy. There were photos of them holding hands in parking lots, kissing in his car, entering and leaving that hotel room with the body language of people who knew each other's bodies intimately. The kicker? Maddie was wearing jewelry I recognized. A bracelet I'd helped Derek pick out for his mom's birthday back in March. A necklace that had supposedly been a bonus gift from the restaurant's owner for excellent service. Lies. All lies, stacked on top of each other like a tower of cards that I was about to blow down. Janet handed me the envelope across the table at a coffee shop, her expression sympathetic. "I'm sorry, Bella, I really am. Do you have a support system? Friends? Family you can talk to about this?" I laughed, this bitter sound that didn't feel like it came from me. My support system is sleeping with my husband, so no, not really. She'd squeeze my hand, told me to take care of myself, to see a lawyer before I confronted anyone. Smart advice. Logical advice. But I wasn't feeling very logical right then. I was feeling this cold, calculated rage that settled into my bones like frost. Because it wasn't just the cheating. People cheat, marriages fall apart, that's life. It was the specific cruelty of it. My sister. My own sister who I'd helped and supported and loved despite all her flaws. And my husband who'd stood in front of our friends and family and promised to honor me, cherish me, be faithful to me. They'd looked me in the eye every single day and lied. They'd sat at my table, eaten my food, accepted my love and trust, all while they were sneaking off to screw each other behind my back. That kind of betrayal isn't just about sex or broken vows. It's about the fundamental disrespect of thinking someone's too stupid to notice, too weak to do anything about it, even if they did. Well, they're about to learn just how wrong they were about me. I spent the next 2 weeks planning. Not the screaming match, throw his clothes on the lawn kind of confrontation. That's too easy, too expected, too quickly resolved with lawyers and therapists and time. No, I wanted something bigger. Something that would match the scope of their betrayal. Something that would hit them right in their smug, selfish cores and leave a mark they'd carry forever. My birthday was coming up, October 15th. 30 years old. A milestone. I'd mentioned wanting to do a dinner party at our favorite restaurant, somewhere intimate with our closest people. Derek had jumped on the idea, probably relieved he wouldn't have to pretend to be devoted to me all night at home. Maddie had offered to help plan it, because of course she did. The audacity of these two was honestly impressive in its shamelessness.
"We'll make it special," Maddie had said, hugging me tight. "You deserve the best birthday ever, sis." I had hugged her back, breathing in her perfume, something new and expensive that Derek had probably bought her, and I'd smiled. "You're so sweet. I'm lucky to have you in my life." The lie tasted like poison on my tongue, but I swallowed it down, because I had plans, and those plans required them to feel safe, to think they'd gotten away with it, to relax their guard just long enough for me to strike. I invited everyone who mattered. Our parents, mine and Derek's, my best friend Jenna and her husband Marcus, Derek's brother and sister-in-law, a few close friends from work, 20 people total, all gathered at Canlis, this gorgeous restaurant overlooking the city with views that can make you forget your problems, at least temporarily. I wore a red dress that hugged every curve, got my hair and makeup done professionally, and walked in there looking like a woman who had it all together. Derek kissed my cheek at the entrance, told me I looked stunning. Maddie was already there, of course, wearing a tight dress that showed off her figure, her hair perfectly tousled in that effortless way that actually takes an hour. She waved at me with this bright smile, and I waved back, my own smile unwavering. Dinner was perfect. Course after course of incredible food, wine flowing freely, conversation and laughter filling the private room we'd reserved. People kept toasting me to 30 years, to friendship, to love, to all the good things life had to offer. Derek held my hand under the table, playing the devoted husband. Maddie kept catching my eye across the table, giving me these looks like we were in on some secret together. And maybe we were, just not the one she thought. I let them relax. Let them think the evening was going exactly as planned. Let Derek's hand wander a little on my thigh, possessive and familiar. Let Maddie laugh at his jokes, that special laugh she'd developed for him that was different from her laugh with everyone else, if you knew what to listen for. Then, during dessert, Maddie stood up. She clinked her glass with her fork, drawing everyone's attention. My heart started racing because this wasn't part of the official plan we'd discussed. This was her going rogue, and I had a pretty good idea why. "Sorry to interrupt," she said, her voice bright but with an undercurrent of something else, something triumphant. "But I have some news I wanted to share, and what better time than at my sister's birthday dinner, surrounded by family. I'm pregnant."
Maddie announced, her hand moving to her stomach in that universal gesture of expectant mothers everywhere. And before anyone asks, yes, I know who the father is. She turned to look at Derek, her smile widening. We've been in love for months now, and we couldn't keep it a secret anymore. We're a family now. The room went silent. Not the good kind of silent, the anticipatory kind before everyone claps. The bad kind. The shocked kind. The did she really just say what I think she said kind. Our mother made the small sound, something between a gasp and a sob. Jenna's mouth literally dropped open. Derek's brother said, "What the actual hell?" But I didn't react. Not yet. I sat there, my expression carefully neutral, and took a sip of my wine. Let them squirm. Let them wonder why I wasn't screaming, crying, throwing things. Let them start to panic just a little bit at my calm. Bella, Derek started, his voice strangled. I can explain. No need, I said smoothly, setting down my glass and standing up. I was steady on my heels, steady in my resolve, steady in the knowledge that I held all the cards here, and they were about to find out just how badly they'd miscalculated. Actually, I have some news of my own I'd like to share. I picked up my glass again, held it up like I was about to make a toast. Everyone's eyes were on me now. The tension's so thick you could practically choke on it. Maddie's smug smile was starting to falter. Derek had gone pale, and I could see the wheels turning in his head, trying to figure out what I knew, what I was about to do. First of all, I said, my voice clear and carrying in the sudden quiet, congratulations, Maddie. Truly. I hope this baby brings you all the joy and fulfillment you've been searching for. I paused, let that sink in, watched her confusion grow. And Derek, I want to thank you for 3 years of marriage, for some good times mixed in with the bad, and for teaching me a very valuable lesson about trust. What? Maddie said, her confidence crumbling.
I'm grateful, I repeated, because if you hadn't been so arrogant, so sure I'd never find out or would just roll over and take it, I might never have done my own digging. And if I hadn't done my own digging, I never would have discovered the truth about Derek's finances, how he's been embezzling from his firm for the past year and a half, how he's been funneling money through shell companies and offshore accounts, thinking he was too smart to get caught. Derek's face went from pale to gray. People started murmuring, confused. Derek's brother stood up, looking between us. What the hell is she talking about? Oh, I'm talking about the fact that your brother has been committing felony fraud, I said conversationally, like I was discussing the weather. I'm talking about the fact that when I started investigating the affair, I noticed some financial irregularities. Large cash withdrawals, transfers to accounts I didn't recognize. So I dug deeper, hired a forensic accountant, and guess what we found? A whole network of theft that's going to send him to prison for a very, very long time. You're lying, Derek said, but his voice shook. He knew I wasn't. He knew I'd found the one thing he hid in even more carefully than his affair. I'm not, I said, and I already turned everything over to his firm's management and the FBI this morning. They're probably serving the warrant to seize your assets right about now, actually. So, congratulations, Maddie. You're pregnant by a soon-to-be convicted felon who won't have a dime to his name. You played yourself so hard, and honestly, it's the best birthday present I could have asked for. The room erupted. People shouting, Maddie screaming, Derek lunging for me but being held back by his brother and Marcus. My mother was crying, asking how this could have happened. Derek's parents looked shell-shocked, disbelieving. And through it all, I stood there with my glass raised, finally taking a long, satisfying drink of my wine. There's more, I said, cutting through the chaos. See, I also filed for divorce last week, and because Derek committed fraud during our marriage using our joint accounts, I'm protected from any legal liability. The prenup we signed, the one his lawyer drew up to protect his assets, actually works in my favor now, since his assets are all proceeds from criminal activity. I walk away clean, with everything I brought into the marriage, while he loses everything and gets a felony record. I turned to Maddie then, and I let her see the full extent of my rage, my hurt, my absolute triumph in this moment. And you, dear sister, You get to raise a baby alone while your baby daddy sits in federal prison. You get to explain to our parents why you betrayed me for a man who was using both of us. You get to live with the knowledge that you threw away your relationship with your only sister for what? A few months of sneaking around, some nice jewelry, an accidental pregnancy with someone who'll be unavailable for the next 5 to 10 years? Maddie was crying now, ugly tears that smeared her makeup. "You vindictive bitch," she sobbed. "No," I corrected. "I'm a woman who refused to let you destroy me. There's a difference. You wanted to humiliate me at my own birthday dinner. You wanted to watch me break down while you claimed your happily ever after with my husband. Well, congratulations. You got your moment, but I got justice. And trust me when I say justice tastes so much sweeter than revenge." I set down my glass, grabbed my purse, and looked at Jenna. "You ready to get out of here? I'm thinking we hit that new cocktail bar downtown and actually celebrate my birthday without all this toxic energy." Jenna practically jumped up, linking her arm through mine. "Hell yes. Let's bounce."
Walking away from that restaurant felt like shedding skin I'd been trapped in for way too long. But here's the thing nobody tells you about dropping truth bombs that blow up your entire life. The adrenaline eventually wears off. And that's when reality hits you like a freight train going full speed. The next 48 hours, they were about to test every ounce of strength I thought I had, and then some. Jenna and I made it about 3 blocks before my phone started blowing up. I'm talking 50 texts in 5 minutes. Calls coming in back to back, voicemails piling up faster than I could delete them. I silenced the whole thing and shoved it in my purse, but not before catching a glimpse of Derek's name flashing across the screen for the 100th time. "Nope. Not today, Satan." "You want to talk about what just happened?" Jenna asked as we slid into a booth at this dive bar in Belltown. Nothing fancy, but exactly what I needed. Dim lighting, good whiskey, and zero chance of running into anyone from that disaster of a dinner party. "Not even a little bit," I said, ordering a double bourbon meat. "I want a drink. I want to pretend I'm a normal person celebrating turning 30, and I want to not think about the absolute dumpster fire I just set ablaze." She clinked her glass against mine when the drinks arrived. "To new beginnings and watching toxic people get exactly what they deserve." "I'll drink to that." But my hands were shaking when I brought the glass to my lips, and Jenna noticed because she notices everything. That's what happens when you've been best friends since college. She could read me like a book with giant font. "Okay, real talk time," she said, her voice gentle. "That was the most savage, badass thing I've ever seen anyone do. But Bella, honey, are you actually okay? Because you just nuked your entire family dynamic and exposed your husband as a criminal in front of everyone you know. That's not small potatoes." And just like that, the dam broke. 1 minute I was fine, totally in control, and the next I was sobbing into my bourbon like some basic chit who couldn't handle her liquor. All the emotions I'd been holding back for weeks, the hurt, the betrayal, the rage, the grief for the life I thought I had, came pouring out in this ugly, messy wave that I couldn't stop even if I wanted to. Jenna moved to my side of the booth, wrapped her arms around me, and just let me cry it out. She didn't try to fix it or tell me it would be okay or any of that toxic positivity garbage. She just held me while I fell apart, and that's real friendship right there. "I helped her," I choked out between sobs. "I gave her money when she was broke. I introduced her to my friends. I welcomed her into my home, my marriage, my life. And she took everything. She took him, and she took my trust, and she's standing there pregnant and smiling like she won some kind of prize." "She didn't win anything," Jenna said it firmly. "She's pregnant with a criminal's baby, and she destroyed her relationship with her entire family for what? A dude who's about to be somebody's cellmate? That's not winning, babe. That's losing in the worst way possible." I knew she was right, logically. But emotionally, I was a wreck. Because it's one thing to plan your revenge, to gather evidence and build your case and prepare for the moment you bring everything crashing down. It's another thing entirely to actually do it. To see the look on their faces, to watch your mother cry and your sister's world implode, and to know that you're the one who made it happen? Was I justified? Absolutely. Did they deserve it? 100%. But that doesn't mean it didn't hurt like hell anyway. We stayed at that bar until last call, and by the time Marcus picked us up, designated driver extraordinaire, I'd cried myself out and moved into that weird, numb stage where nothing feels quite real. Jenna insisted I stay at their place in Fremont, and I didn't argue because going back to the apartment I shared with Derek sounded about as appealing as a root canal without anesthesia. I crashed on their couch, still wearing my red dress, and my phone was still blowing up. 50 unread messages had turned into 200. Derek, Maddie, my mother, my dad, Derek's parents, people from the dinner, random acquaintances who'd heard about the drama. Everyone had something to say, and I didn't want to hear any of it. But at 3 in the morning, wide awake and staring at the ceiling, I finally caved and started reading through them. Mistake. Huge mistake. Derek's messages were a masterclass in manipulation. First came the anger. How could you do this to me after everything I've done for you? Like he was the victim here. Like I'd betrayed him instead of the other way around. Then came the bargaining. Please, we can work this out. Don't do this. Think about what we had. What we had was a lie, buddy. But sure, let me just forget about the affair and the embezzlement because you said please. Then came more anger. You vindictive psycho. You'll regret this. You've ruined my life over nothing. Over nothing. The audacity was almost impressive. Maddie's texts were somehow worse. A mix of self-pity and blame that made me want to throw my phone across the room. How could you humiliate me like that? I'm your sister. You're supposed to love me no matter what. Yeah, and you were supposed to not sleep with my husband, so I guess we're both disappointed. Mom's devastated. Dad won't even look at me. You've destroyed our family. I destroyed it? Not her sleeping with Derek? Not their joint decision to announce the pregnancy at my birthday dinner? The mental gymnastics were Olympic level. My mother's messages were the ones that actually hurt, though. Bella, sweetheart, please call me. I don't understand what happened tonight. Why didn't you come to us? We could have handled this privately, as a family. Because private handling was exactly what they wanted, exactly what would have let them sweep it under the rug and make me the bad guy for not forgiving and moving on. Your sister needs support right now, not judgment. She's pregnant and scared. What about me, Mom? What about the fact that your daughter needs support because her husband and sister betrayed her in the worst possible way? I didn't respond to any of them. What was there to say that I hadn't already said at that dinner table? Instead, I opened my email and found a message from Janet, my PI, sent at midnight. Bella, I don't know what went down tonight, but I'm guessing from the 3 missed calls from a frantic-sounding man claiming to be your husband that you made your move. Good for you. Just a heads up, I got a call from the FBI agent handling Derek's case. They executed the warrant this evening. His firm is cooperating fully. You did the right thing. Stay strong. Janet. I also had an email from my divorce attorney, Lisa, who I'd hired the week before. Bella, I heard through the grapevine about tonight's events. Call me Monday morning. We need to discuss next steps. The criminal charges against Derek actually strengthen our position significantly. Try to get some rest. Lisa. Rest. Right. Like that was happening anytime soon. The next morning, Jenna made pancakes and strong coffee, and we sat at her kitchen table strategizing like we were planning a military campaign. Because that's essentially what the next few months were going to be. a war on multiple fronts, and I needed to be prepared for every battle. First things first, Jenna said, pulling out a notebook because she's type A like that. You need to secure your finances, change all your passwords, and make sure Derek can't access anything of yours. I know you said the prenup protects you, but better safe than sorry. Already done. I changed everything last week. Bank accounts, credit cards, streaming services, all of it. He's locked out completely. Good. Next, housing. You can stay here as long as you need, but eventually you'll want your own place. What's the situation with your apartment? Leases in both our names, but I've been paying the rent from my account. I called the landlord yesterday, explained the situation, well, the divorce part, not the criminal embezzlement part, and he said I can remove Derek from the lease and stay if I want, or break it early with no penalty given the circumstances. What do you want to do? That was the million-dollar question, wasn't it? Did I want to stay in the apartment where Derek and I had built our life together, where every corner held memories that were now tainted? Or did I want to start fresh somewhere new, clean slate, no ghosts? I think I want to stay, I said slowly, surprising myself. It's my place too. I picked out the furniture, I decorated it, I made it a home. Why should I be the one to leave? He's the one who screwed up. He's the one who's going to prison. I'll sage the hell out of that apartment and make it mine again. Jenna grinned. That's my girl. Okay, so housing secured. Now let's talk about family. Your parents are going to be a nightmare to deal with. Maddie's probably spinning this to make herself look like the victim, and your mom's going to want to play peacemaker and force reconciliation. Oh, I'm sure she's already planning some intervention where we all sit down and talk through our feelings, and I'm supposed to forgive Maddie because she's family, and family forgives. I made air quotes with my fingers, my voice dripping with sarcasm.
You don't have to do anything you're not ready for, Jenna said firmly. In fact, I'd argue you shouldn't engage with any of them until you're in a better headspace. They made their choices. They chose to betray you. The consequences of those choices are on them, not you. Try telling my mom that. I will if I have to. Marcus and I will be your buffer, your screening committee. Anyone wants to get to you, they go through us first. We'll be like your emotional bodyguards. I laughed for the first time since the dinner, a real genuine laugh that felt good in my chest. Emotional bodyguards. I love it. You should make business cards. We spent the rest of the morning plotting and planning, and it felt good to be proactive instead of reactive, to take control of the narrative instead of letting it control me. By the time Monday rolled around, I had a game plan. Step 1, meet with Lisa, my attorney, and nail down the divorce proceedings. Step 2, go to the apartment while Derek was definitely not there. He'd been arrested Saturday morning, made bail by Saturday afternoon, according to the news alerts I'd set up, and was probably staying with his parents. Step 3, change the locks. Step 4, start therapy, because I was self-aware enough to know I needed professional help processing this trauma. Step 5, block everyone except the people who actually mattered. Jenna, Marcus, a handful of real friends who'd reached out with genuine support instead of judgment or demands. Lisa's office was in downtown Seattle, one of those glass and steel buildings that screamed expensive lawyer. She was worth every penny, though. Mid-40s, sharp as a tack, and a reputation for absolutely destroying unfaithful spouses in court. "Bella!" she greeted me warmly, gesturing to the leather chair across from her massive desk. "How are you holding up?" "I've been better," I admitted, "but I'm still standing, so there's that." "From what I understand, you're more than standing. You're winning. The evidence you provided regarding Derek's embezzlement is airtight. His criminal attorney is going to have his hands full, and that works entirely in our favor for the divorce." "Walk me through it," I said. "What happens now?" She pulled out a file, flipped it open, and launched into an explanation that was both terrifying and satisfying. Derek was being charged with wire fraud, embezzlement, and money laundering, federal crimes with serious prison time attached. The firm he'd stolen from was suing him civilly as well, seeking restitution for the millions he had taken over the past 18 months. "Millions?" I interrupted. I knew it was bad, but millions?
Just over 2.3 million, according to the forensic accountant's report, Lisa confirmed. He was very good at covering his tracks. If you hadn't started digging, he might have gotten away with it for years. The number made me dizzy. $2.3 million. And he'd been living with me, sleeping beside me, pretending everything was normal while he committed major felonies. What kind of person does that? The good news for you, Lisa continued, is that none of that money went into your joint accounts. He kept it separate, which means you have zero legal liability.
The prenup you signed protects your premarital assets, and since his assets are now proceeds from criminal activity, they're subject to seizure. You walk away clean with everything you came into the marriage with. Plus, you can petition for spousal support given the duration of the marriage and the circumstances of the dissolution. I don't want his money, I said immediately. I don't want anything from him. I understand the sentiment, Lisa said carefully, but I'd advise you not to make emotional decisions about financial matters. You're entitled to support, and frankly, making him pay is just one more consequence of his actions. Don't leave money on the table out of pride. She had a point. Why should I make things easier on him? He sure as hell hadn't worried about making things easier on me. Fine, I agreed. We'll go after spousal support. What about the timeline? How long until this is finalized? Given the criminal charges, we can expedite on grounds of fraud and infidelity. I'd estimate 6 to 8 months for the divorce to be finalized, possibly sooner if he doesn't contest it. And honestly, his lawyer is going to advise him not to contest you. Fighting you in divorce court while he's facing federal charges would be strategic suicide. 6 to 8 months. I could do 6 to 8 months. I'd already survived the worst of it. The discovery, the planning, the execution. The cleanup would be messy, but at least I'd be moving forward instead of living in limbo. After the meeting with Lisa, I headed to the apartment with Jenna and Marcus as backup. I'd warned them Derek might be there, despite my text telling him to stay away, and I wanted witnesses in case things got ugly. But the place was empty when we arrived. Eerily quiet in that way spaces get when someone's gone and taken their energy with them. It was strange walking through rooms that had been ours and realizing they'd never really been ours at all. They'd been mine, decorated with my taste, furnished with my choices, maintained with my effort. Derek had just existed in them, taking up space without actually contributing anything meaningful. We packed his stuff efficiently: clothes, toiletries, his electronics, the few things that were distinctly his. It took less than 3 hours to erase all physical evidence of his presence, and I felt lighter with every box we sealed. This was my space now, mine alone. No more sharing it with someone who didn't deserve to be here. The locksmith came that afternoon and changed every lock in the place. New keys, new deadbolts, new sense of security. Derek could come back and find himself locked out of yet another thing he'd taken for granted, and I wouldn't lose a wink of sleep over it. That evening, alone in my reclaimed apartment, I finally let myself feel the weight of everything. Not the anger or the triumph or the vindication. The grief. Because even though Derek had betrayed me in the worst way possible, I'd still loved him once. I'd believed in the life we were building together. And that life was gone now. Not because of anything I did wrong, but because he chose to destroy it. I let myself cry, really cry, for the dream that had died, for the future I'd imagined that would never exist, for the naive girl who'd walked down that aisle 3 years ago thinking she'd found her forever person. She deserved to be mourned, that version of me who'd trusted so completely. But I also let myself feel proud. Proud that I'd been strong enough to investigate instead of staying blind. Proud that I'd protected myself legally and financially. Proud that I'd stood up in front of everyone and refused to be humiliated into silence. Proud that I was still here, still standing, still fighting. The next few weeks were a blur of legal meetings, therapy sessions, and carefully managed social interactions. My parents tried multiple times to initiate family meetings, to force conversations I wasn't ready for. I declined every time, much to my mother's dismay. "Bella, this is getting ridiculous," she said during one particularly tense phone call. "Maddie is your sister. She made a mistake, yes, but she's still your sister, and she's pregnant and alone and needs family support. She made a choice, Mom. Multiple choices, actually, over the course of months. Choices to sleep with my husband, choices to lie to my face, choices to accept gifts bought with stolen money, choices to announce her pregnancy at my birthday dinner in the most humiliating way possible. Those weren't mistakes. Mistakes are accidents. What Maddie did was calculated and cruel." "She's sorry. Is she sorry she did it? Or sorry she got caught? Sorry she hurt me? Or sorry she's facing consequences? Because from where I'm sitting, she's only sorry her plan didn't work out the way she wanted." "That's not fair." "You want to talk about fair? Let's talk about how it's not fair that I helped her when she was broke, not fair that I welcomed her into my home, not fair that I trusted her, not fair that she repaid all of that by sleeping with Derek and getting pregnant and thinking she could just announce it and I'd, roll over and accept it?" "No one expected you to accept it, sweetheart, but we did expect you to handle it with more grace than publicly destroying them both." There it was, the real issue. Not that Maddie and Derek had betrayed me, but that I'd had the audacity to fight back. That I'd made a scene, that I'd embarrassed the family by airing dirty laundry in public instead of suffering in silence like a good little victim. "Grace?" I repeated, my voice dangerously calm. "You wanted me to handle their betrayal with grace? Here's the thing, Mom. I don't owe them grace. I don't owe them privacy or discretion or quiet forgiveness. They took those things from me when they decided to betray me. What I owe is to myself, to stand up for myself, to protect myself, to refuse to let them get away with it. And that's exactly what I did." "Your sister is struggling." And whose fault is that? Mine for exposing what they did, or theirs for doing it in the first place? Because last time I checked, I didn't make Derek embezzle millions of dollars. I didn't make Maddie sleep with him. I didn't make them announce the pregnancy at my birthday. They did all of that on their own, and now they get to live with the consequences. My mother sighed, that long-suffering sigh that said she thought I was being unreasonable but didn't want to argue anymore. "I just hope you can find it in your heart to forgive someday. Holding on to anger like this will only hurt you in the end." "Maybe," I acknowledged. "Or maybe setting boundaries and refusing to let toxic people back into my life is actually the healthiest thing I can do. My therapist seems to think so." I hung up before she could respond, my hands shaking with adrenaline and frustration. This was going to be the pattern, I realized. My family trying to push reconciliation, me holding firm, them seeing me as the problem instead of the solution. It sucked, but it was better than the alternative, letting them guilt me into accepting unacceptable behavior just to keep the peace. Jenna was right when she said they'd try to make me the villain. That's what happens when you refuse to play the victim. People get uncomfortable with your strength because it highlights their own complicity in the situation. It's easier to blame the person who speaks up than to hold the people who caused the problem accountable. Therapy helped. Dr. Chen, my therapist, was this calm, centered woman who didn't let me get away with deflecting or minimizing what I'd been through. She validated my anger while also helping me process the grief underneath it. She taught me that healing wasn't linear, that I'd have good days and bad days, and that both were okay. "You experienced a double betrayal," she explained during one session. "Your husband and your sister, two of the people who should be safest, violated your trust in profound ways. It's natural to question everything now, to wonder who else might betray you, what other lies you might have believed.
That hypervigilance is a trauma response, and it will ease with time and processing. What if it doesn't? What if I never trust anyone again? Then we'll work on that, she said simply. But I don't think that's where you're headed, Bella. You're already showing incredible resilience and self-awareness. You're doing the work. That counts for a lot. The work was exhausting, though. Some days I felt strong and capable and ready to take on the world. Other days I could barely get out of bed, crushed under the weight of everything I'd lost, the life I'd imagined, the sister I thought I had, the marriage I believed in, the family I thought would support me no matter what. It all felt like sand slipping through my fingers, and some days I wondered if I had done the right thing, if publicly destroying them had been worth the cost, if maybe I should have handled it differently, more quietly, with less spectacle and fallout.
But then I'd remember the look on Maddie's face when she announced the pregnancy. That smug, triumphant smile like she'd won some kind of prize. The way she'd said, "We're a family now," like I was just supposed to accept being replaced. Derek's arrest made the local news. Finance professional charged with multi-million-dollar embezzlement scheme, ran the headline, complete with his mugshot looking haggard and defeated. His firm released a statement about cooperating with authorities and implementing new safeguards. His parents hired an expensive criminal defense attorney, but even that guy was telling reporters the evidence was damning. Maddie, meanwhile, was finding out that being pregnant by a soon-to-be felon wasn't quite the romantic fantasy she'd imagined. The Instagram posts stopped. Her friends started distancing themselves. The restaurant where she worked fired her when they found out about the affair and the drama it had caused. Turns out, employers don't love employees who bring toxic baggage and media attention to their establishments. My mom kept sending me updates like I cared. "Your sister had to move back home. She can't afford her apartment anymore." Good. Maybe she should have thought about that before blowing up her life for someone else's husband. "She's having a hard pregnancy, morning sickness all day." Karma's a real witch, isn't it? "She asks about you. Tell her I'm too busy living my best life to spare a thought for her." 3 months after the birthday dinner, Derek's trial date was set. 6 months after that, assuming no delays. His attorney was trying to negotiate a plea deal, but the prosecutors weren't budging much. They wanted to make an example out of him. My divorce was proceeding smoothly. Derek had signed the papers without contest, probably on his lawyer's advice. We were just waiting for the court date to finalize everything. Lisa had secured a decent spousal support package that would help me rebuild. Not because I needed Derek's money, but because he owed me that much for the years I wasted on him. I had started dating casually, nothing serious, just testing the waters and remembering what it felt like to be desired by someone who wasn't lying to me. It was strange at first, being vulnerable with new people, but also liberating. I was learning who I was outside of being Derek's wife or Maddie's sister. Just Bella, standing on her own, figuring out what she actually wanted out of life. Work was going well, too. I'd thrown myself into my projects, and my boss had noticed. She pulled me aside one day and offered me a promotion. Senior project manager, significant raise, more responsibility. I accepted immediately, feeling like maybe things were finally turning around. But the universe wasn't done testing me yet, because just when I thought the worst was behind me, just when I thought I could finally move forward in peace, Maddie showed up at my apartment at 11 o'clock on a Tuesday night, 7 months pregnant and sobbing on my doorstep. And that's when everything I thought I knew about betrayal, revenge, and justice got a whole lot more complicated. "Bella, please," she sobbed through the door. "I know you hate me. I know I don't deserve anything from you, but please, I need help. I have nowhere else to go." I stood on the other side of that door with my hand on the knob, and I had a choice to make. Let her in and risk getting hurt again, or turn her away and live with that decision forever. Neither option felt right. Neither option felt safe. So, I opened the door, and I let her in. Not because I forgave her, not because I wanted her back in my life, but because sometimes the only way to truly close a chapter is to read it one last time, all the way through, until you understand exactly why that story had to end. Sometimes the people who hurt you the most come crawling back when they've got nowhere left to crawl, and you have to decide if you're a safe place to land or a wall they're about to hit hard. Standing there with my sister on my doorstep, 7 months pregnant and desperate, I was about to find out which one I was. And honestly, neither of us was ready for what came next. I let Maddie inside, but I didn't offer her comfort. I stood by the door with my arms crossed while she collapsed onto my pouch, her pregnant belly prominent under her stretched-out hoodie. She looked rough, hair greasy, face puffy from crying, dark circles under her eyes that spoke of sleepless nights and hard reality checks. "Talk," I said flatly. "You've got 5 minutes to explain why you're here, and then you're leaving." "Derek's being impossible," she started, and I almost laughed at the audacity. Of course this was about Derek. Of course she wasn't here to apologize or make amends or acknowledge the destruction she'd caused. She was here because her life was falling apart and she needed someone to fix it. "How is that my problem?" I asked, checking my watch. 4 minutes. "He's refusing to help with the baby," she said, her voice cracking. "He says once he goes to prison, I'm on my own. His parents won't help either. They blame me for everything, say I seduced his son and ruined his life. Mom and Dad are barely speaking to me. I have no job, no money, no support system. Bella, I'm terrified." "You should be," I said, unmoved. "You're about to be a single mom with no resources because you burned every bridge you had for a guy who's going to federal prison. That's called consequences, Maddie. Welcome to the club." "I know I screwed up," she sobbed. "I know I hurt you. I know I don't deserve your help, but this baby didn't ask for any of this. This baby is innocent, and I'm begging you, not for me, but for your niece or nephew. Please help me figure this out." The baby card. Of course she'd go there. And it pissed me off because it was manipulative as hell, but also because there was truth in it. Whatever Maddie had done, whatever Derek had done, their kid was innocent. That baby was going to grow up with a father in prison and a mother who'd made catastrophically bad choices, and that wasn't fair. But fair had stopped being part of this equation a long time ago. "What do you want from me?" I asked. "Money? A place to stay? Forgiveness? Because I'm not sure I can give you any of those things." "I need help getting Derek to set up something for child support," she said. "He has money hidden somewhere. I know he does. Before everything went down, he kept talking about having a backup plan, accounts the feds didn't know about. If I could just get access to some of it, enough to get through the next few years until I'm back on my feet." And there it was, the real reason she was here. Not remorse, not reconciliation, not even desperation for her child's well-being. She wanted me to help her get money from Derek. Money he'd stolen. Money that was evidence in a federal case. Money that would land both of us in prison if we tried to access it. "Are you out of your damn mind?" I said, my voice sharp. "You want me to help you commit more crimes? To access hidden assets that Derek embezzled? That's conspiracy, Maddie. That's aiding and abetting. That's throwing away everything I've built to save your reckless ass." "It's not like that." "It's exactly like that. You're asking me to break the law, to risk my freedom, to help you profit from Derek's crimes, the same crimes that destroyed my marriage and nearly destroyed my life. Are you even hearing yourself right now?" She started crying harder, those manipulative tears that probably worked on her whole life, but weren't going to work on me. Not anymore. I'd grown immune to her brand of emotional blackmail. "Get out," I said, walking to the door and opening it. "I'm not doing this. I'm not helping you. And if you're smart, you'll forget about Derek's hidden money and figure out how to make it on your own like the rest of us." "Bella, please!" "Out now, before I call the cops and tell them you're trying to involve me in accessing proceeds from criminal activity." She left, still crying, still throwing accusations over her shoulder about how I was heartless and cruel and how I'd regret this someday. I closed the door behind her and leaned against it, my heart pounding, because part of me, a small, stupid part, had almost felt sorry for her, almost wanted to help, just a little bit, just enough to ease her suffering. But that would have been the same pattern that got me into this mess in the first place. Being too nice, too accommodating, too willing to sacrifice myself for people who wouldn't do the same for me. And I was done being that person. I called my attorney first thing the next morning and told her about Maddie's visit. Lisa's response was immediate and harsh. Under no circumstances do you engage with her about Derek's finances. If she contacts you again about this, document it and inform me immediately. This could be construed as her trying to implicate you in money laundering. Great. So now my sister wasn't just a homewrecker, she was potentially trying to drag me down with her. The hits just kept coming. But the universe apparently wasn't done throwing curveballs, because 3 days after Maddie's visit, I came home from work to find Derek sitting on the steps outside my building. Not pregnant and crying like Maddie, but haggard and desperate in his own way. He'd lost weight, his usually pristine appearance now disheveled. His bail conditions probably allowed him to be here, but that didn't mean I wanted him anywhere near me.
"What are you doing here?" I demanded, keeping my distance. "You're not supposed to contact me." "I'm not violating anything," he said quickly. "My lawyer checked. I need to talk to you, Bella. 5 minutes, please." Every instinct screamed at me to walk away, to call building security and have him removed, to maintain the boundaries I'd worked so hard to establish. But curiosity won out. What could he possibly have to say that would make any difference at this point? "You've got 3 minutes," I said, not moving closer. "Talk." "Maddie came to see me," he said, and I felt my stomach drop. "She told me she went to you, tried to get you to help her find my hidden money. Bella, I need you to know there is no hidden money. Everything the feds found, they seized. I'm broke, worse than broke. I'm in debt from legal fees and restitution. Whatever Maddie thinks exists, it doesn't." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I know my ex-wife," he said, and the ex stung even though I'd filed for divorce. "I know you might feel guilty about the baby, might feel pressured to help Maddie even after everything. And I'm telling you, don't. She's not looking for help. She's looking for a payday, and she'll take you down with her if given the chance." "Gee, Derek, that's rich, coming from the guy who embezzled millions and destroyed our marriage," I said sarcastically. "You'll have to forgive me if I don't take your advice on trustworthiness." "I deserve that," he acknowledged. "I deserve all of it. The charges, the divorce, losing everything. I'm not here to defend myself or ask for forgiveness. I'm here because, despite everything I've done, I don't want to see you get hurt again, especially not by Maddie." "Why? What's she planning?" He hesitated, looking around like he was afraid of being overheard. "She's been talking to some shady people, guys who specialize in finding hidden assets, moving money offshore, that kind of thing. She's convinced I have millions stashed away, and she's willing to do whatever it takes to get it, including using you as leverage." "Using me how?" "She's got this insane plan," Derek said, running his hairs through his hair. "She thinks if she can convince these guys that you know where my money is, they'll pressure you to give it up. Or worse, they'll hurt you to get to me. I told her it was crazy, that there is no money, but she's not thinking straight. The pregnancy hormones, the stress, the fact that her whole world fell apart. She's desperate, and desperate people do dangerous things." My blood ran cold. "Are you saying my sister is threatening me?" "I'm saying she's in over her head with people who don't care about family bonds or consequences. And I'm saying you need to be careful. Very careful." He stood up then, preparing to leave. "I know you hate me. I know I destroyed everything good in your life. But for what it's worth, I never wanted you to get caught in the crossfire of my stupidity. Watch your back, Bella. And don't trust Maddie. Not for a second." He walked away, leaving me standing there with a million questions and a growing sense of dread. Was he telling the truth? Was this some elaborate manipulation? Was Maddie really that far gone? I called Jenna immediately, told her everything.
Her response was predictable. We need to call the police. If Maddie's involved with criminals who might target you, that's a credible threat. But when I called my attorney and relayed Derek's warning, Lisa had a different take. Unless there's a specific threat, the police can't do much. Derek's warning is vague. Shady people and might hurt you isn't enough for protective orders or arrests. But we can prepare. We can document everything, install security cameras, alert your building management, and make sure you're protected. So that's what I did. Cameras went up in my apartment. I varied my routine, stopped posting on social media, kept my doors locked and my eyes open. And I waited to see if Maddie would make her move. She did, 2 weeks later, but not in the way I expected. I got a call from my mother, hysterical. "Bella, Maddie's missing. She didn't come home last night, she's not answering her phone, and she's 8 months pregnant. Please, if you know anything." "I don't," I said honestly. "The last time I saw her was when she came to my apartment asking for help with Derek's money. I turned her down." Oh, God. My mother breathed. Derek's money. "Bella, what if she went looking for it? What if she's in trouble?" My mind raced. Had Maddie really gone after some mythical hidden stash? Had she gotten involved with the wrong people? Despite everything she'd done, I didn't want her hurt. She was still my sister, still human, still carrying a baby who deserved better than any of this. "I'll make some calls," I told my mom. "Sit tight." I called Lisa first, then the detective who'd worked Derek's case, then finally, reluctantly, Derek himself. Within hours, we'd pieced together a disturbing picture. Maddie had been seen 3 days ago meeting with a known financial criminal, someone who specialized in recovering hidden assets through less than legal means. She'd told him she knew where Derek's money was, had offered him a cut if he helped her get it. The problem? She'd lied. She didn't know where anything was because there was nothing to find. And now she owed these people information she couldn't provide. The police found her the next morning at a motel outside the city, shaken but physically unharmed. The guys she'd been dealing with had roughed her up a bit when they realized she'd been lying, but they'd let her go. Probably because she was obviously pregnant, and even criminals have some lines they won't cross. But the incident changed everything. Maddie had hit rock bottom and finally understood the consequences of her actions. When my mother brought her home from the hospital, Maddie asked to see me. Not to ask for money or help, but to apologize. I met her at a coffee shop, neutral ground, with Jenna as backup. Maddie looked small and scared, her hand unconsciously protecting her belly. The smug, confident woman from my birthday dinner was gone, replaced by someone who'd had every illusion shattered. "I'm sorry," she said immediately, tears streaming down her face. "I'm so sorry, Bella, for everything. For Derek, for the affair, for the pregnancy announcement, for trying to use you. I've been so selfish, so blind, so stupid. You tried to warn me with your actions at the dinner, showed me what consequences look like, and I still didn't learn. I kept making it worse." "Why?" I asked simply. "Why Derek? Why betray me like that?" "Because I was jealous," she admitted. "You always had it together, the job, the marriage, the perfect life. And I was always the screw-up, always disappointing everyone. When Derek started paying attention to me, I felt special for the first time in forever. Like maybe I was worth something. I know that's pathetic. I know it doesn't excuse anything, but that's the truth. You destroyed my marriage because you wanted to feel special? I destroyed your marriage because I'm broke and I made terrible choices and I convinced myself that somehow you wouldn't get hurt or that you'd be fine because you're always fine. I diminished your pain to justify my selfishness. And I'm sorry. I can't change what I did. But I want you to know I see it now. I see how much I hurt you and I'm genuinely, truly sorry."
It wasn't enough. It would never be enough. But it was something. An acknowledgement. A real apology. A glimmer of actual accountability. I appreciate you saying that, I said carefully, but Maddie, I can't have you in my life. Not now, maybe not ever. What you did broke something fundamental between us, and I don't know if it can be fixed. Maybe someday, years from now, we can be civil, but right now, I need distance. I need to heal without you constantly reopening the wound. She nodded, accepting it even though it clearly hurt. I understand. I do. Just know that I'll spend the rest of my life trying to be better, trying to be someone worthy of eventually earning your forgiveness. We left it there. No dramatic reconciliation, no tearful hug, no promises of future sisterhood. Just an acknowledgement that we were two people who shared DNA and a traumatic history, and that was all we'd be for the foreseeable future. Derek's trial happened 6 months later. He pleaded guilty to all charges as part of a plea deal that got him 8 years in federal prison instead of the 15 he was facing. I didn't attend the sentencing, didn't want to give him the satisfaction of seeing me there. But I heard through my attorney that he'd made a statement taking full responsibility, expressing remorse, and apologizing to everyone he hurt, including me. Too little, too late, but at least he owned it. My divorce was finalized a month after that. I got everything I'd asked for, walked away clean with my dignity and my financial security intact. The spousal support would tide me over nicely while I continued rebuilding my life on my own terms. Maddie had her baby, a girl she named Sophie. My mother sent pictures that I glanced at and then deleted. Maybe someday I'd be ready to meet my niece, to be an aunt, to separate the innocent child from the circumstances of her birth. But that day wasn't today, and I wasn't going to force it. I'd learned something crucial through all of this. Healing isn't about forgiveness or reconciliation or making nice for the sake of family harmony. It's about setting boundaries that protect your peace, surrounding yourself with people who genuinely care about you, and refusing to accept treatment that diminishes your worth. A year after the birthday dinner that changed everything, I was genuinely happy. Not fake happy, not pretending everything's fine happy, but real, authentic, bone-deep contentment. I'd been promoted again at work, I'd started dating someone new, a genuinely good guy who communicated honestly and respected my boundaries. I'd made new friends, strengthened old friendships, and learned to trust my instincts. Jenna threw me a birthday party for my 31st. Nothing fancy, just close friends and good vibes. As I looked around the room at people who'd stood by me through the worst year of my life, I felt grateful, not for the betrayal or the pain or the destruction, but for the clarity it had brought. Because here's the truth they don't tell you about revenge, about justice, about standing up for yourself. It's not a magic fix. It doesn't erase the hurt or undo the damage, but it does give you back your power. It reminds you that you're not a victim, you're a survivor, that you get to write your own story, set your own terms, and walk away from anything or anyone that doesn't serve your highest good. The moral of this story isn't that revenge is sweet or that making people pay for their sins brings happiness. The moral is simpler and more profound. Know your worth. Protect it fiercely, and never, ever let anyone convince you that setting boundaries, demanding respect, or refusing to accept unacceptable behavior makes you the villain. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for yourself is walk away from people who hurt you, even if they're family. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stand up in a room full of people and speak your truth, even if it's ugly. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is put yourself first, even if others call you selfish. I learned that the hard way. I learned it through betrayal and heartbreak and the kind of pain that changes you fundamentally. But I also learned that I'm stronger than I ever knew, more resilient than I imagined, and capable of building a beautiful life from the ashes of my destroyed one. Derek's in prison. Maddie's raising Sophie alone, working retail and living with our parents.
My mother still occasionally tries to push reconciliation, but she's learned to accept my boundaries. And me? I'm thriving in ways I never could have when I was busy playing the role of perfect wife, perfect sister, perfect daughter. Because perfect was exhausting. Perfect was a cage. Perfect was trying to earn love from people who'd never value what I offered. Now, I'm just Bella, flawed, fierce, and finally free. And honestly, that's the best revenge of all. Not their suffering, but my happiness. Not their downfall, but my rise. Not their punishment, but my peace. So here's to 31. Here's to new beginnings, hard-won wisdom, and the kind of strength that only comes from surviving what should have destroyed you. Here's to knowing that sometimes the biggest gift you can give yourself is the permission to walk away from anyone who makes you feel less than the incredible person you are. And here is to raising a glass to yourself and making a toast that changes everything. Not because you destroyed them, but because you finally freed yourself. That's the real story. That's the truth behind the revenge. That's the moral that matters. You can't control what people do to you, but you can control how you respond. And choosing yourself, protecting yourself, refusing to be diminished, that's not revenge. That's revolution. And baby, I was just getting started.
If this story touched your heart or made you feel every twist of pain and justice, don't forget to hit like and subscribe for more powerful stories like this. Your support means everything and keeps these emotions alive on screen. And before you go, leave your valuable thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear how this story made you feel.